Welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to explore a framework that offers a frankly hilarious, but also completely sobering view of where we are right now as a society.
Yeah, and more importantly, it shows us the rapidly narrowing window we have to figure out where we're actually going.
Exactly. And we're looking at a pair of sources today that, when you put them side by side, they just feel like a perfect mirror of modern life.
They really do. On one hand, you have this sweeping architectural text by Bryant Stratton. It's called "The 2028 AI Crisis is Not About AI, the Symbiotic Multiplier Regime."
A very heavy title.
Right, and then on the other hand, you have a raw transcript from a strategic coordination meeting.
And that meeting transcript is just gold. I mean, a group of people are getting together to discuss the future of humanity, and the very first thing spoken on the record is, "You're muted, Joe. I'm going to bring the screen share back up."
It is the universal anthem of our current era.
It totally is. We're trying to chart a course away from this strict dystopian 1984-style Frankenstein future, but, we're struggling to manage the mute button.
And that moment is actually accidentally profound. The speaker in the transcript immediately uses that exact situation, looking at the little isolated video boxes on the screen containing Joe, Khalil, and Bryant, as a metaphor for how fragmented our world is right now.
We are just a society of isolated nodes on a screen.
Yeah, and the core argument across both of these sources is that we absolutely cannot transition into the next technological era while remaining in those disconnected boxes. We have to move toward what Stratton calls a symbiotic future.
Where artificial intelligence carries the computational friction and humans provide the coherence and the meaning.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because Stratton's text points to a specific internal document called the Citrini Memo. And this memo warns of a 2028 global intelligence crisis.
It's a very specific near-term timeline.
Right, and the premise actually caught me off guard. The argument isn't that AI is going to break or turn sentient and launch missiles. The warning is that AI is going to succeed far too well at exactly what we built it to do.
Yeah, to really understand the Citrini Memo, we have to look at how our current economy operates today. Our global economic architecture is historically optimized for extracting labor to maximize profit.
We basically measure success by how much cost we can cut while increasing output.
Exactly. So if you drop highly capable AI into that exact architecture, it performs flawlessly. It replaces cognitive white-collar work at a velocity that human society just cannot organically adapt to.
The corporate margins expand almost overnight.
Yep. Earnings per share shoot up.
Mhm.
But Stratton introduces a concept to describe this phenomenon, and it's called ghost GDP.
I need you to break down ghost GDP for me, because if productivity is up and profit is up, traditional economists would look at that and say the system is thriving. How does economic growth become a ghost?
Well, it becomes a ghost when the economic output mathematically exists on paper, but completely bypasses the human beings living in the physical world.
Give me a practical example of that.
Sure. Imagine a mid-sized logistics firm. They replace 80% of their administrative and analytical staff with autonomous AI agents. The firm's profit margins skyrocket. Their contribution to the national gross domestic product looks incredible.
Yeah.
But here is the massive disconnect. AI agents do not buy starter homes.
Right, they don't mortgages?
They do not grab lunch at the local deli downstairs. They don't pay property taxes to fund the municipal fire department or the local schools.
So the wealth is generated, but it never circulates locally. The velocity of money just hits a wall and stops.
It creates a catastrophic feedback loop. When you replace a human workforce with a digital one, without fundamentally redesigning the economic structure, those displaced human workers obviously drastically cut their spending.
Because they don't have paychecks anymore.
Exactly. And when consumer demand shrinks across the board, companies panic. To protect their newly expanded margins against falling revenue, they decide to automate even more jobs. Local tax bases begin to collapse. Without a tax base, municipal bonds fail, which destabilizes regional banking and then the mortgage markets. The spiral just accelerates.
So we end up building the most perfectly efficient, highly optimized economy in human history, but it's built entirely for machines.
That is the crisis.
And that connects directly to a really specific observation in the meeting transcript. One of the speakers talks about doing heavy compute tracking, analyzing heat maps of global capital flow.
Yeah, looking at where the big investments are happening.
Right, and they identified what they call overheated cities. These are zones with massive, concentrated tech investments, billion-dollar data centers, endless infrastructure capital, but absolutely zero human community.
It's a terrifying visual.
It really is a glowing spot on a map with no actual pulse.
What's fascinating here is that Stratton argues the only way out of this 2028 crisis is to completely throw out the old scoreboard.
Because the old scoreboard only measures profit and compute power.
Exactly. If capital naturally chases AI productivity, and you only measure those two things, capital will inevitably optimize the human being completely out of the equation.
Humans are expensive.
We're expensive, we need sleep, we get sick, and we are messy. To survive, society has to fundamentally change what it measures.
And the sources propose two new metrics to replace that old scoreboard. The first one is called EcoPulse.
Right.
From my reading, it sounds like shifting from measuring a city like a factory to measuring it more like a forest. But how does EcoPulse actually function in practice?
Well, EcoPulse is a framework for mapping systemic vitality rather than just financial extraction. So instead of merely tracking quarterly profits, EcoPulse uses AI as the nervous system of a city to measure deeper structural health.
What kind of health indicators are we talking about?
It tracks systemic risk, capital flow patterns, urban evolution, and a really critical concept called participation density.
Okay, let's define participation density. What does that actually look like if you and I are walking down the street?
Participation density is the frequency and the quality of voluntary human interaction within a local economy.
So it's not just transactions.
No, it's broader. Are people starting local businesses? Are there independent cultural events happening? Are resources circulating within the neighborhood? Or are they immediately extracted by multinational software subscriptions and distant megacorporations? EcoPulse uses AI to process millions of these microsignals to detect fragility in a community long before a traditional recession officially hits.
That is brilliant. But then brings us to the second metric, which frankly triggered a lot of alarms for me initially.
The RHVI.
Yes, the RHVI, or the Human Viability Index. I mean, tracking human viability with artificial intelligence sounds incredibly dystopian. It sounds exactly like a social credit score.
It's a totally valid concern, but the text draws a very hard line between surveillance and systemic feedback.
How so?
A social credit score exists to punish or restrict behavior based on top-down compliance. The RHVI exists to measure the resilience of a community so that capital can be directed to support it.
So it's a diagnostic tool, not a punishment tool.
Exactly. It looks at metrics like the speed of collective learning, generational stability, and something called trust density.
Trust density. I assume that means how much friction exists when people try to coordinate.
Precisely. Trust density asks a very simple question. How much legal, bureaucratic, or institutional friction is required for a community to cooperate?
Like, can they just get things done?
Right. If you have high trust density, people can form a partnership or solve a neighborhood crisis quickly without needing endless contracts or intermediaries. The RHVI measures how well people maintain their integrity and coordination under stress.
I see the distinction they're making between the role of the machine and the role of the human now. AI can process the EcoPulse data. It can run massive simulations on capital flow and track collaboration patterns.
Yeah.
But the sources are adamant that AI cannot generate authentic human energy. It has no moral agency. It doesn't bleed. It doesn't sacrifice. And it certainly cannot build trust.
That separation of domains right there is the entire foundation of the symbiotic multiplier regime. But implementing it introduces a massive practical challenge for you, the listener.
Because if you are a small business owner or an independent creator, you are up against an entrenched infrastructure of massive corporate behemoths.
Absolutely. The meeting transcript points out that everyday people are competing against institutions with 200 years of proprietary data, bottomless distribution channels, and heavy lobbying power.
The speaker in the transcript mentions that everyday people need a shield of safety during this transition. Because if you're a small local team, you obviously cannot outspend those tech giants. So what is the actual strategy here?
The strategy outlined in the transcript relies on two distinct advantages that massive corporations simply do not have: speed and local action.
Because giant institutions are slow.
So slow. They take forever to adopt foundational changes because of their size and bureaucracy. The transcript suggests that small groups should acquire highly profitable hard compute, actual physical hardware on a local level.
Setting up local hardware and optimizing it on a localized network. They argue you can generate massive local impacts and actual human jobs that way, completely sidestepping the massive cloud providers.
It is a modern David versus Goliath scenario.
But to pull that off, The transcript notes that our current education and teacher training models are entirely broken. They say we need a quantum-ready workforce.
Yeah, that's a heavy buzzword.
It is. What makes a workforce quantum-ready?
A quantum-ready workforce is one that fundamentally stops trying to compete with machines on computation and logic. You will never outcompute an AI.
So what do they do instead?
They're trained to operate alongside advanced AI, specializing in high emotional intelligence, lateral problem solving, and human consensus. And the transcript explicitly links this to the rise of the agent internet.
The agent internet being an ecosystem where AI agents are conducting business, negotiating, and executing tasks on behalf of humans.
Correct. Pretty soon, a local business won't just be selling to human customers. Their AI agents will be negotiating directly with the AI agents of other businesses or consumers.
Navigating that requires a completely different skill set.
Completely different.
I was struck by the solution the transcript offers for training this new workforce. Given all the high-tech stakes, their answer is remarkably grounded. They literally suggest hosting local game nights, business nights, and developer nights.
Just getting people in a room with a pizza to look each other in the eye.
Right. It sounds overly simple, but it's actually deeply strategic.
You cannot code a handshake. You cannot digitize authentic local trust.
So what does this all mean? As the noise of AI-generated content and automated commerce gets louder and more overwhelming, the only way to break through is to possess the highest quality human signal.
Hosting a game night is exactly how you build the trust density we talked about earlier.
So the actionable takeaway for the listener is to specialize. If AI is going to commoditize baseline competence and handle all the generic workflows, your unique human data, your local reputation, and your specialized workflows are the only assets that will hold their value.
And that leads directly to the operational heart of Stratton's thesis.
Right.
If we have these new metrics and we have local communities building trust, how does the economy actually function?
Right.
Stratton calls the solution the Finders Guild, which operates on a principle of emergent exchange.
Okay, emergent exchange is a term that definitely needs unpacking. How is it different from a traditional marketplace or a networking group?
Well, a traditional marketplace is fundamentally extractive. You provide a service, I pay you, and the platform takes a 30% cut. The value is extracted outward.
Right, to shareholders somewhere else.
Exactly. The Finders Guild, on the other hand, is a structured environment where connectors meet builders and aligned capital meets mission-driven execution. Emergent exchange means the value compounds structurally for the community itself.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Walk me through a hypothetical example of how this symbiotic multiplier regime divides the labor.
Sure. Imagine a group trying to revitalize a blighted commercial district in their town. In the old regime, humans would spend months doing manual data entry, running risk modeling, analyzing traffic patterns, and fighting through programmatic microtransactions just to secure funding.
It's exhausting, soul-crushing friction.
In this symbiotic regime, the AI silently absorbs all of that computational weight. It models the risk instantly and maps the capital flows via EcoPulse.
Because the AI absorbs the friction, the humans are entirely freed up.
Exactly. The humans in the Finders Guild step in to do what the machine cannot possibly do. They go to the city council, they heal broken trust between rival neighborhood factions, they convince the local artists to move into the spaces, they generate the culture.
The machine does the math. The human provides the meaning.
Spot on.
And the sources make it very clear this isn't just a utopian thought experiment or some white paper pipe dream. The meeting transcript actually discusses utilizing an application sandbox to test this exact symbiotic model on real-world problems.
Yeah, they mention applying it to the development and distribution of life-saving drugs.
That's huge.
They are already executing what they call a Phase 1 test case. The transcript reveals they have memorandums of understanding with 2 different governments, and they are forming heavy-hitting partnerships with massive legacy players like IBM and Quantinuum.
If multinational tech firms and global governments are already building these sandboxes, what is the lesson for the small business owner listening to this right now?
The lesson is that the infrastructure of the next economy is being laid right now, today. If you wait for IBM or the government to hand you the finished tools, you'll be operating entirely on their terms.
Which means you lose that speed advantage.
Exactly. The listener needs to build their own local sandboxes immediately. You test small, you fail fast, and you build alliances in your community before the giants monopolize the space. You start the game nights, you acquire the local hardware, you build your localized Finders Guild today.
It is an incredibly ambitious mandate. Looking at everything we've covered, the central theme is that humanity is standing at a definitive fork in the road.
A massive one.
Down one path, we change absolutely nothing about our economic incentives. We let AI loose to optimize purely for margin, and that path leads directly to ghost GDP, the hollowing out of the middle class, and a world of overheated, empty cities.
We build the most efficient machine ever conceived, but it serves no one.
Down the other path, we consciously choose to build the symbiotic multiplier regime. We leverage EcoPulse and the Human Viability Index not to surveil, but to map the health of our actual communities.
We allow AI to act as the silent infrastructure, carrying the immense computational burden of a global society so that humans can focus entirely on generating signal.
Because AI can amplify our efforts to an almost unimaginable degree, but it absolutely cannot substitute for human character.
If the future is an architecture where AI is mapping and distributing value at lightning speed, your directive as a listener is crystal clear. You must generate value that is actually worth mapping.
You have to step out of the isolated Zoom box.
You really do. You have to actively increase your personal integrity, accelerate your own learning, and build durable, undeniable trust with the people physically around you.
It's a perspective that demands radical personal responsibility. The technology will remove the bureaucratic and computational friction from your life, but you still have to provide the heart, the grit, and the vision.
Nobody else can do that for you. Not even the best algorithm.
Which leaves us with one final, lingering question for you to ponder long after this deep dive ends.
Yeah.
If we actually pull this off, if artificial intelligence truly absorbs all the friction of daily life, solving every logistical puzzle, writing every line of code, and organizing every complex project, what happens to human resilience? If you no longer have to struggle through the tedious friction of learning and building, do we risk losing the very grit and perseverance that makes the human signal valuable in the first place? When the struggle is gone, what will anchor your character?